Good morning, my colleagues. The committee on the whole will have returned from recess, and we'll begin with amendments that have been submitted. We have currently two, one from Senator Therese Churlai and one from Senator Sabina Paris. We will begin with Senator Therese. Ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're passing out currently two amendments, but they go together. And what it really is going to do is, because there are two sections of the law that indicate that funds will be going into the Alcoholic Beverage Compliance Fees and Fines Fund. I spoke with legal, and on their advice, I think it's best that we create the fund as the author intends to do, but in a totally separate section of the code, so that it applies to all contributions to the Alcoholic Beverage Compliance Fees and Fines Fund. So that fund is set up for all purposes, just in a separate section. So that's what these two amendments are going to do. The paper you have in front of you shows a strike through of the original language, and it places it in by the next amendment into another section of the code. I would ask that these be considered together, Mr. Chair, because one depends on the other. And I was just thinking about that right now, if that's possible, notwithstanding the rules. And if I could draw your attention to the second amendment, where there are no underlines, that spells out the Alcoholic Beverage Compliance Fees and Fines Fund, as the author indicated, adds her language that it will not be commingled, and it's separate and apart. And I added another sentence to the end of that paragraph that says, monies collected and deposited into the fund shall be automatically or continually appropriated from the fund to DRT. This is on the recommendation of BBMR in their fiscal note, that since this is, the intent was for it to be a revolving fund, approximately $100,000, they might that they could use it immediately when they need it for their compliance purposes. So that's the intent, and that would be my motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Churlai. Are there any of my colleagues, comments would be Senator Tidegui, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the good senator from Chotnya for this amendment. It strengthens the bill, it's precise, it makes it very clear that it covers this account, because as we know, the account will be created and established, and that makes it clear, which was done in the 31st Guam Legislature on 31-199. But then later on in the 32nd Guam Legislature in Public Law 32-51, it also references this particular account as well. So I believe this definitely strengthens it, and I greatly appreciate the good author of this amendment, and fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tidegui. I'd ask that Senator Therese, maybe on your amendment, your second amendment, the line would be line 4, and it'll just push everything down, and then legal folks will adjust it on page 3, because only on line 4 is the severability. Are there any other comments or any questions that my colleagues have for the two amendments? Because they basically work hand in hand. It's a flow. If there are no objections, the amendment passes. Both amendment passes. I know that Senator Paris has an amendment, but she's here. She's walking in. So, I know Senator Therese, you have a copy of her amendment. Would you want to read that one on behalf of Senator Paris? Because I know she's here, just walking in. Just so we can hear it, and hopefully she'll walk in.
The amendment reads to amend the bill to add this sentence: the Director of the Department of Administration shall furnish an itemized annual report and a quarterly report of all financial activity within the fund to Imagahagan Guahan and Legislature in Guahan.
Senator Tyree, you have a comment for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it's just the amount of funding in this, the proposed or estimated amount of funding that's going into this account is, about 100,000, 150,000. And if we were to do a quarterly report, you're looking at only, discussing 20,000 every month, and that's like more work that's needed. I'm pretty sure that at the end of the year, a report will be given. So, with all due respect, I object to this amendment.
Does any other colleague have any comment? Just a reminder of what was stated also yesterday by our panel. Senator Lee.
Suzus Masi, Mr. Chair, I just find it highly irregular that we're discussing an amendment when the proffer of the amendment's not here. Could we just maybe take a 1-minute brief recess and see if we're able to locate
All
her?
right, we'll take a recess.
Thank you.
We are back from recess. Senator Sabina, on your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's come to my knowledge that for all lock boxes for special funds, there is a requirement for annual reporting. And so with that in mind, I will withdraw the amendment as it duplicates whatever's in law.
All right, thank you, Senator Sabina. Are there any objections to the withdrawal of the amendment? There being none, so ordered. Are there any other amendments?
Yes.
Senator Sabina, you have another amendment?
Yes, I do have an amendment. It's being drafted or sent to the clerks for printing.
It's being drafted?
It's drafted, it's being printed.
Oh, it's being printed?
Yeah, it actually just got printed.
Okay, so we'll take Another minute recess. We're back from recess. Senator Sabina, you have an amendment, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the amendment I'd like to proffer reads, it's on for page 2, line 26. It reads, should the board be unable to make quorum to approve the use of monies collected, the administrator may still be authorized with notification given to the chairman of the board or his designee. So this was, we produced this amendment on request by the board, ABC board. Yeah. And basically it provides checks to ensure that, the monies are spent properly.
Thank you, Senator Sabina. Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the good sponsor for incorporating this amendment into the bill. As it was mentioned on several different occasions, the issue about meeting quorum, And this definitely will cover that situation. But it's important too that always to keep the board abreast, as the good director mentioned earlier, that most things have to be approved by the ABC board in order to get through. So this doesn't stop the process, and can continue on in case the quorum is not met. So I greatly appreciate this amendment and thank the good author.
Thank you, Senator Chalo. Does Senator Kelly?
Saina Maasi, Mr. Chair. I too support this. I think that it does strengthen the bill and it reassures all of us that there is a process in place. The process won't be held up. Important considerations can be tackled in a timely manner, and that there are checks and balances all along the way. I would just have one small amendment, and it's to remove the MAN after chair so that it reads notification given to the chair of the board or his or her designee. So, yeah, chair or chairperson, I'm fine with either, or his or her designee. So I would just proffer those as an amendment.
Okay. Senator Sabina?
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that adjustment. I think it's acceptable, very acceptable.
All right, thank you. Senator Kelly, can you repeat your amendment just so we can go over it to make sure it is clear?
Saina Maasi. Yes, so to take the statement here where it says notification given to the chair and then to cross out MAN, and then where it continues on and says of the board or his, to add in or her designee, or it could be / her designee.
Are there any objections to or any comments or questions from my colleagues? There being none, that motion passed. Back to now the original amendment that has been amended. Senator Sabina, would you like to close on that?
No need.
No, no need. Are there any objection to Senator Sabina's amendment? None. It's adopted. I'd ask the sponsor to close on the bill and to give us the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I move to rise from the Committee of the Whole with the recommendation that Bill number 40-35, COR, and its amendments be placed in the third reading file. And I'd like to thank my colleagues for all their support on this bill.
On that motion, are there any objection? There being none, we stand in recess. My colleagues, we're back from recess. Let me just restate this. On the motion, are there any objection? There being none, motion carries. We stand in recess.
The legislature is back in session. Senator Joseph Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to report back to the body that the bill number 40-35 COR was deliberated and amended in the Committee of the Whole with a recommendation to place on the third reading file.
On that motion to place on the third reading file, hearing no objections, motion carries. Moving on, Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes, you are recognized.
Good morning, Janmanana Sijus, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I may, I'd like to move and place Bill number 86-35 COR as amended by the Committee on Public Safety, Border Safety, Military, and Veterans Affairs, Mayor's Council, Infrastructure, and Public Transit, and submitted on the floor. If I can move it to the third reading, and if I can please speak on it.
To discuss, please proceed.
Sijus Maasi Tatlu, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill number 86-35 COR is an act to add section 615411 and a new section 61547, both of Article 5, Chapter 61, Title 21, Guam Code annotated, relative to exterior on-premise signage in H resort zones and defining and regulating digital signage. Undunkaluna Sijus Masi for giving me this opportunity to speak on it, Madam Speaker, and I would like to start that by stating that digital signage in H resort zone will undeniably attract many of our visitors as well as encourage future visitors due to modernized shift throughout the world. Our zoning laws should reflect modern shifts in the hospitality industry, and signage regulations should be updated. A variety of services within the H resort zone will have the convenience of sharing their services and information as our visitors explore our well-renowned hotel district. We may use this modernized approach to our island's advantage. One of the main foundations for the success of many businesses is advertisement. It is clear that digital signage is already significant for advertising. Some of the permitted uses under this bill include cultural and recreational facilities, hotels, restaurants, shops, and offices, dwellings, parks, marinas, amusement activities, and supportive services. There are commercial businesses that should be able to advertise what is on their property, Madam Speaker, and I just want to say, that being said, the signs may serve as a silent salesman, encouraging the many services of our tourism industry. Madam Speaker, we have worked diligently on the improvements of this bill and made the following amendments. I want to go ahead and talk about that. I do have four amendments to proffer. And I also want to add two committee testimonies that were inadvertently not put in. So, Madam Speaker, if I may, public service announcement was defined further. It was to have PSAs limited to factual information about public health and safety topics and shall inform and educate. Another one was signage will not exceed 20% of the allowable signage area. Another one was the height to width ratio of 1 to 2.5 was removed to service the creativity of digital signage. The section 61547B7 was added to prevent the danger to biodiversity in the area, for example, our turtles. Additionally, working with legal counsel, I want to say thank you to them for taking the time to help us restructure this. We reorganized the bill for better quality. And Madam Speaker, I would like to add that with this modernized initiative with strict regulations, we have the opportunity to expand the attraction of our hotel district while providing advertising assistance to many of our island businesses. And with that being said, and in working with a lot of my colleagues and other community stakeholders, I would like to proffer those amendments that I talked about earlier. And I think I will go ahead and start first with the technical ones, if I may. I have 4. So on page 2 of the bill, line 14, it says window or clear covering on the building wall shall not be higher, and it said that, change it to than. So shall not be higher than.
Anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? Hearing no objections, amendment passes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the same thing goes, another technical error on page 8 that I'd like to fix. It's a typographical error. It's on page 8, same thing, line 6. Shall not be higher than the. So instead of that, delete the T at the end and then the.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Hearing no objections, amendment passes.
And then another one, Madam Speaker, is on page 9, working closely with my colleagues again, to delete on line 9 and 10, page 9, delete 14. Digital signage may be audible but not to exceed 75 decibels. I know that this was had some concerns with those that were at the public hearing, so we'll go ahead and tackle that at a later date. I'll go ahead and delete that at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this amendment? Hearing no objections, amendment passes.
And Madam Speaker, as we talked about protecting our biodiversity and our sea life, on this amendment, it's going to be on page 8 of the bill, lines 9 and 10, on item number 7. It's going to note a sign authorized under this section, delete not, and put only be placed on any building wall along the Poly San Vitores Road or the Gun Beach Road that faces the road. So if you look at the map, I don't have a phone book, but we're going to make sure that the signage based on the H Resort Zone, the buildings, their signage would be facing the road. I hope that my colleagues can support me in those efforts, Madam Speaker, as I think that it was a great compromise, and thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak in Horizons, to present this bill to our members, but also to work with this amendment.
Thank you. On that amendment, anyone wishing to speak? Senator Marsh-Titano, you are recognized.
Sinamasi, Madam Speaker, and I really appreciate the author of the bill taking my concerns to heart. This is a way that we all help each other out. We each have different matters that we have heard from various aspects of the community, and over the years I had heard from the community that if we're not careful about our lighting, we can be negatively impacting our marine life, especially turtles. And so we have to be extremely careful about the lighting that is potentially shed towards the water. It disorients coral, algae, other marine life, and I said especially turtles. They can misunderstand when reproduction cycles are, it overstresses them, and things like that. So I definitely support this amendment, and I thank the author for the bill for really understanding my concerns and making a concerted effort to try to get the language right. It was not easy to get that language together, but to get the language so that it meets the goal to the closest of our ability at this point. So again, I stand in support of this amendment. Sanmasi.
Situus Masi, Senator. Any others wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Flores, you are recognized. Sorry, Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do appreciate the intent and the amendments made on this particular part of the bill. I just have a question regarding what if the sign faces the road, but it's not obstructed by a building? And should the light be, basically go further out into the ocean? Does this amendment actually address that? I mean, I know the intent behind it, but if there is, let's say the sign is facing towards the ocean, there's no obstructed, it's facing the road, which is also facing the ocean, and there's no building obstructing the light pathway from reaching the beach side. How can the language be changed to address that?
Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, do you yield to the question?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I'll
Situus
try and
Masi.
attempt to do that. I guess, based on my understanding, the way the signs would be put, the LED lighting component will not project that far out. And I do know that it was researched on by our committee, and that the illumination will not go that far out. So we wanted to make it clear that all the buildings that are on the beach side will not have any signage on the back of the hotels, but it would be facing, and it was one way to try and address all the concerns from the different angles of the hotels that are situated on the Gun Beach Road and then the Poly San Vittori's Road, and lower lights at night. So, Madam Speaker, that's the best I can say right now, and I'm hoping that this would suffice.
Situus Masi, Madam Speaker. Senator Perez, does that satisfy your inquiry? Situus Masi. Anyone else wishing to speak? Senator Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you. I support the intent of this amendment. However, it just seems a little bit unclear to me whether this language is going to really suffice. The bill is proposing to change the signing law and allow electronic signs throughout the entire H zone of Tumon Bay, which goes, from what I can tell from this map, from the Hilton, all along the bay, all along the ocean, all the way to Gun Beach, of course. And with the exception of, it looks like Ipao and Matapeng Beach are not zoned hotel zone. But of course, all the surrounding property, even inland, is zoned hotel zone. But, so the concern was, of course, yes, as the previous speakers said, it's right now, scientists tell us that shining the bright lights on the ocean disrupts, at nighttime, it disrupts the regular patterns of, especially the turtles, as was said earlier, and different animals. So I guess the question for me is that we're saying now by this, so the original language was saying that it wouldn't, a sign that was placed on a building would not totally face the ocean. But now we're changing the language to say that signs along the road will only face the road. But it makes sense for those that are beach side of the road. But for those that are on the opposite side of the road, I guess it's definitely facing the ocean. So it seems less restrictive for those properties than the original language. And so I know that the intent was to make it stricter, but I guess, and this was a sticking point in this bill. It's difficult to word it. I think that this is what we're calling the original language was actually changed from the original bill also. So I can see the intent is to address it, but I guess if I may just, I raise that concern that I'm not sure that facing the road, if you are facing the beach, facing the road, I mean, you're still going to be facing the oceans. That's my concern. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sedulous Masi, Senator Terlahi. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Tello Taitigui, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is a bit confusing on the amendment. I mean, the whole intention is that no lighting is going to be directed toward the beach. It's that simple. If I explained it to this body that no sign that is erected shall face the ocean side. So if anybody's walking on Tumon Beach, if they look over to their left and they see a light, then it's in violation. I mean, that's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here. So when you're saying a sign authorized, I want to make sure if I'm on the right amendment. Is this line 9-10, page 8 of the bill? Okay, we are on the right one, because, so it says faces the road. But it doesn't say anything about, visible by the ocean, by the beach. And I think that's what the intent of this amendment is supposed to say, and it's not. It's a bit confusing. I realize what this Bill 86-35 does. We're creating a hotel zone, an H zone for signage. So, Madam Speaker, if I can, I'd like to make some kind of amendment to make it clear for everybody, because it does sound confusing even to some of my colleagues. So if we can take a short recess and try and figure this out, I appreciate it.
We will take a short recess. The legislature is back in session, and we will take a recess until 1:30 p.m.